Nathan, how you doing? Ian, good to see you.
Sorry about that. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Let's give everybody a couple minutes to get on here.
Yeah, no problem.
Widget set up. All right. Kayla, good to see you.
Thank you.
We'll give everybody a couple more minutes. I know we had 10 other people that said they were going to be there and a few late cancellations or conflicts today that still are going to be involved. So we'll give everybody just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Always want to be respectful of people's time and everything that is going to go on. I think what I'll do is kind of just share a little bit of the agenda. Let me just stop this and jump over to that screen. What the plans are for today are just for us to kind of go through a quick overview of Sports Philanthropy Network. We'll have all of the people that are here go around and give introductions just so we know who else is on the call. Everybody can get a chance to know each other. And then Kayla and I will do a little brief PowerPoint kind of going through the purpose of having chapters for Sports Philanthropy Network and some of the goals and expectations. And then kind of wrap into a discussion of the launch event on May 18th. So I see that we're getting more people on here now. So I'm glad that everybody's been able to join us. So welcome to Eric, Brian, Angel, Bailey. Thanks you all for jumping in here. So I thought what would be a good thing is I'll just do a quick start on some of the overview on Sports Philanthropy Network. For those of you that haven't had as much chance to interact with us directly, we're about 3 years old now, fighting through the heart of the pandemic to get this thing moving and off of the ground. But we've had a lot of interest and engagement from many directions, from all around the country and all over the world. So we're really excited to get some things started here with the Kansas City chapter, and we appreciate everybody taking the time. I want to introduce Kayla Bradham, who's our Executive Vice President, and Abby DeRossi, who's our Director of Communications. You'll be dealing with them a lot, and I'll let them introduce themselves as we go around here as well. Why is this not working? So Sports Philanthropy Network, our focus is on building stronger, healthier, and more inclusive communities through sports, and we really try to do that in a variety of ways. One of the first is advancing the sector of sports philanthropy, looking at putting together conferences, educational and professional development programs, multiple podcasts, a lot of research and information that we share, and really building up a network of people who have the intent and focus of using sports for good and sports for social change. And part of that role is providing media coverage and highlighting the work that's done by many organizations around the globe. So many sports teams that are doing incredible work, and our feeling is it just doesn't get enough highlights, enough spotlight for what's going on, and we want to give it more of a voice. So the types of organizations that are in our network consist of three main categories. The one most people think of is athletes and their foundations. Number two is community-based sports nonprofits, which is probably the largest in terms of raw number. And then the pro teams, leagues, governing bodies, and associations. There's an enormous amount of investment from their end and resources into their communities. And we want to help build that pipeline and collaboration tools with other organizations. So we talk about our role being in essentially to serve as the ACE, right? So we want to amplify, connect, and educate in all of these organizations. So the media coverage, the event coverage, the calendars, but then helping connect the resources that people are looking for. So it may be the athletes, it may be finding businesses that can collaborate together or could partner up. Individuals, technology is really a big tool. Oftentimes nonprofits are behind the ball in adopting technology due to cost constraints and things of that nature. And the education function relates to masterminds, seminars, trainings, workshops, and our signature event each year is called Sports Philanthropy World, which is a big conference. It's been virtual the last 2 years, but that's allowed us to really expand the scope and reach people not only across the US, but around the world. And we've had the good fortune of having over 30 countries represented each of the last 2 years at our conference. So we talk about our primary initiatives focusing on three areas. Number one, health and safety. Number two, sports access. And number three, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our Sports Philanthropy World Conference has grown each year. You know, we're getting more large organizations involved, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So before we go to the purpose of the chapter model, I'm going to turn off screen share. And what I'd love to do is have everybody go around and introduce themselves. I'll call on people just so that we know who else is involved here. So I'll start with letting Kayla introduce herself.
Well, thank you very much, Roy. And Roy, if you don't mind while I'm doing that, I think it would be helpful to pull up the list of people who are signed up for this who couldn't make it today so we can share their names and titles with everybody. Folks, my name is Kayla Bradham. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sports Philanthropy Network. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I love building teams and developing whole and complete athletes and communities.
Great. All right, thanks, Kayla. Abby?
Hi, I'm Abby DeRossi. I'm the communications manager here at Sports Philanthropy Network. I live in New York, and I look forward to working with you all.
Great. Then I'd like to have Nathan Hunt introduce himself.
Ethan Hunt. I'm with Sporting Kansas City as the Director of Coaching for the Academy affiliates. So we oversee the youth space for Sporting Kansas City from the front office perspective.
Terrific. Eric. Eric, I think you're still muted there.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, my name is Eric Schroeder. I am the founder of an organization called My Heart Check. We provide heart screenings on kids through various sports organizations, inner city organizations, club teams, that kind of thing. We do this to try to prevent sudden cardiac arrest and to help kids stay healthier, live longer, hopefully teach them a little bit about heart health and blood pressure and that kind of thing in the process. So
great. And it's so important. I know we'll let Eric talk more about that at another point, but we've got multiple organizations we work with in different parts of the country that are doing that. And it's such an unknown area of risk that people just aren't focused on. So we're excited that you're here, Eric. Angel?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to see all of you and to officially meet Roy and Kayla. I am the manager of community partnerships and events for the Kansas City Royals. We cannot tell by my background. So I manage and oversee many of our Royals community initiatives, programs, events, as it relates to our charitable arm, which is Royals Charities, and also with the Urban Youth Academy. My pillar for a lot of the foundational work is within education. So that's where I specialize in.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, Angel. Bailey?
Hello, I'm Bailey Conklin with United Soccer Coaches. I'm their marketing and communications manager. We're a nationwide organization that serves soccer coaches from every level, but we are we're headquartered here in Kansas City, Missouri.
Terrific. Thanks for joining us. Ian?
Yeah, very nice to meet everybody. I'm a soccer guy here in Kansas City, Missouri. I've been living here for 10 years and previously Minneapolis, and before that Wisconsin, working in all levels of soccer from the professional down to the most grassroots. Yeah, I checked your LinkedIn, Roy, so we were at Wisconsin similar times. And I'm very close to the work that Nathan does and Bailey does and Brian does. So it's nice to see some familiar members of the soccer community here on the call. So, yeah.
Terrific. Thanks for being here, Ian. We'll have to talk about some Madison area soccer when we get a chance. Good old days of United and 56ers, right? James?
Yeah, my name's Jim Huber, and I was introduced just by Jason Holzer, so he told me to come on this, and co-owner of an organization called 40 Athletes, and the idea is we use sports as a vehicle to kind of teach life skills and character to help kids like win the game of life. So thanks for letting us be a part of this.
Absolutely, we're glad you're here. So thanks for joining us, Brian.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Brian Turner. I work in the soccer world as well, kind of a lot of different things. I work with Bailey, the United Soccer Coaches. I do some work with US Soccer. Then I have a business called No Stress Midwest that I started. Does soccer training, academic tutoring, scholarship foundation, podcast, clothing, apparel. So really just trying to create a holistic environment for the youth athlete to train and get better, both on and off the field. So I know Bailey, I know Ian, I know Nate. So it's good to see some familiar faces on here.
Terrific. Thanks for being on with us, Brian. I know we've had great conversations with you and Kayla and I, and we're excited that you're involved. Melanie,
Same.
we're doing introductions, so go ahead and give a quick intro for yourself there. You're on mute.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melanie Boris, and I'm a speech pathologist But what I do for fun is work with professional athletes on their public speaking skills and write speeches. I'm a speechwriter. I've given a TED talk and it's online, and I'm helping other people be prepared for their TED Talks. And I'm supposed to start working with an HBCU shortly on public speaking for their football team.
Terrific. Well, thanks for being with us, Melanie. We're excited that you're here. We know you've done great stuff, and what's really been interesting as we've started opening chapters in different markets is just seeing the diversity of people that are involved from all the different sports, different age groups, different aspects of the sports industry, and really that's one of the goals here. I'm going to turn it over to Kayla and let her go through the purpose of the chapters here.
Thank you, Roy. Can you please turn the screen sharing back on then?
Yep, let me go get that done.
Thank you.
Let's see. Let's try that. Okay. Everybody see that now?
Yeah, thank you. So guys, I know in no way want to turn this into a talking head thing. We know the video is being recorded and everybody will be able to watch this afterwards. But what we really strive to do with these local chapters is, number one, and I think most importantly, create local impact. The needs that you have in Kansas City are very different than the needs that we have in Milwaukee, that Abby has in New York, or that Roy has in Vernon Hills. We want to support businesses. A lot of people are looking, entrepreneurs are looking to get involved. They want to spend their marketing dollars wisely. They know that community service initiatives are important and corporate social responsibility is very important, and they're looking for good causes to get involved with. Our desire is to network the businesses with the community to create impact. Does that make sense, guys? Perfect. Stop me along the way if anyone has questions. Next, Roy. So the way we set up the chapter committees for the steering committee, ideally we envision 4 different committees. They're events, fundraising, outreach and publicity, and membership. You guys are all professionals. You know what those words mean. If everybody would just type into the chat off the bat where they think they probably are the most comfortable, we'll ask Abby to just sort of keep a log, and this is in no way committing you to anything. It just gives us an idea of where you think you fit best. So please type into the chat 1, 2, 3, or 4. And do me a favor, guys, when you're done typing, will you turn off your camera so that I know people are finished typing?
And if you don't type fast enough, the dog will get you.
Has everybody finished typing in the response? Is there anybody we're waiting for? Okay, I'm going to assume we're good. If you hear my rescue German Shepherd in the background, it means the mailman is here. Roy, would you please go to the next screen then? Thank you. So we'll go over the features and benefits of being in the chapter and the steering committee in just a little bit. But off the bat, just making sure that you guys all feel welcome. We want you to know that all events are discounted or free for members, and non-members are encouraged to join and support the efforts. There's so many people who want to do good and just don't know what to do, and we want to help with that. Next slide, Roy. So with the steering committee, the officers are selected 6 months after we launched the chapter. Shout out to Nathan Hunt, Sporting Kansas City, for being so gracious and partnering with us to get that launch. And as you know, we are starting to form the committees now. Nathan, I want to give you just a moment to update us with what you know about that launch event.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to go. So it's with it being our first home game during the week, it was a bit challenging maneuvering through some of the spaces, but I have looked at a couple of spaces, and part of it is contingent upon, do we want to come in a little bit early, pre-gate, do our event, and then there's some time for people to do whatever they want, grab something to eat outside of what we provide, etc., or utilize maybe our space at the training facility at the National Development Center, or sorry, Compass Minerals National Performance Center. I have to say it correctly with all the sponsors' names in there. So, which would then allow us, because then that'll dictate ticketing and all that. So that was one thing that I wanted to make sure that I got clarity on beforehand. So then that way I knew which direction to go with ticketing and then with events and spacing. So.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And again, you guys, this is your local community. You know the answer to Nathan's question better than Roy, Abby, and I do. If you do us a favor, just type into the chat. Nathan, I'm going to ask you to just keep your eyes on the chat as well as Abby. Yep. What do you guys think makes more sense, doing the event earlier or doing it at the training center?
Can I just clarify one thing, Nathan? When you're talking about it at the development center, that's a separate location, which would mean not being at the game?
Well, it would be a little bit before the game, so that all continue. I need to know that stuff so I know the timing of everything. So it's our facility where the first team trains, and where US Soccer is also housed, but it's also another event space that we could utilize. So all the suites are sold out. That is the issue. So if we utilize a suite, we would have to be gone before gates open, which means we would get there a little bit before. So the game's at 7:30. So we would need to be done with our meeting by 5.
By 5, okay.
Yeah, so that's the issue. There's a nice little gap before then. So it looks like Ian's thinking before the game at the National Training Center.
And then logistically, Nathan, the National Training Center in terms of distance from the stadium?
2 minutes away. 2-minute drive at that. Yeah, it's literally right down the road.
Okay.
Same. I agree with Ian. Do it before at Compass.
Okay.
Okay. So then doing it that way, Nathan, does that make it logistically different in terms of tickets or arranging for food or drinks or anything?
Food and beverage isn't going to be much different. Everything's internal in terms of our city foods and event does that. Ticketing, and it's probably not going to do anything different with ticketing. With all the suites sold out, the ticketing was going to be probably non-suite, non-premium level ticketing.
Got it.
So
okay, great. So go ahead, Kayla.
I just wanted to say real quickly, Nathan, on behalf of Sports Philanthropy Network, I just want to say to you and to Sporting Kansas City, thank you so much for your generosity and your partnership. This is what we need to drive change in the community, and we're so grateful for you.
Our pleasure.
So given for those that have been logistically, if we do that at the National Training Center, Nathan, would you think that 5:30 is the right time to call the event? Does that still give people enough time to connect, network, and then get over to the game, or do we need to call it earlier? Should it be more like 5 or 4:30? What do people think?
Well, I guess that's contingent upon how long we were going to account for the actual networking event. So I didn't know what the thoughts were on that. Like, was it 90 minutes? Was it 2 hours? Like, what were we
I think originally my thought, if we were going to be on site, was to call it at 5:30, and then people have, a solid hour and a half to network and then get to where they need to be before the game.
Okay.
I'm wondering if, given that it's now at a different, even though it's not far, but it just requires people to move across, should we call it have it from 5 to 6:30 or 5 to 7. Does that seem like the right fit for people?
I'd probably say 6:30. That way you have enough time to do whatever, phone calls, emails real quick, restroom, get to park, and the next thing kickoff, which I think kickoff will be probably technically about 7:37 or so, something like that.
Okay, so we'll call the event then for 5 to 6:30. We've got a mock-up of the graphic, and we'll get that finalized after this call. Nathan, I'll get the details from you in terms of the address for the training center and any instructions for people who want to come in there, and then we can look at what the appropriate package or pricing should be, in terms of tickets or food or anything like that.
Okay. And then so I'm going to take this information, go back. I'm also going to see if there's another potential opportunity for us to still have the meeting. So maybe have the meeting there, but then get into the Budweiser Brew House, which is another part of the stadium that's open about 2 hours before the game. So it's essentially we would move the networking to a different part of the stadium. So then that way people wouldn't have to go off site. So I'll look at these both. I told ticketing and events, I would come back to them with our discussion so then we could finalize and then so nothing's 100% set in stone. I just want to make that clear. I needed to gather more information so that I could go back and say, this is exactly what we are looking to do, which one's going to be the best. I would venture to say us going and utilizing the executive lounge space on the 4th floor at the stadium and then moving to the brew house would be logistically the best thing for everyone.
Yeah, I think that sounds right, Nathan. I think the less movement in that way, if people are coming in a few minutes later or want to, meet family or have family come and meet them for the game part or something else, we can incorporate it that way. So that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Kaylee, should we keep going on the presentation?
Yes, please. Thank you. So the goals of the chapter, they're here on the slide. Real quickly, the goals are defined by you guys. You know what the needs are in your community. Obviously, taking input from the chapter members, identifying the needs in the community, and identifying potential and cultivating potential donors, members, and financial support in the local community. We'll talk about why that's important when it comes to the revenue that comes in and giving it back to your community. So Roy, if you'd go to the next slide, please. The guidelines and expectations, first and foremost, putting the passion that we all have for using sports for good to action. Creating meaningful change. The meetings, again, up to you guys. It's your community. You'll know best if they're better to have the meetings in person, if they're better to host them virtually, or both. That's up to you. We're thinking that the initial term for each member would be 1 year for the steering committee, and that every committee member would, of course, be a member of the Sports Philanthropy Network, realizing that we're all on the same team, working together to create hope and possibility through sports being a force for good, using our motto, building stronger, healthier, and more inclusive communities. Any questions about that, guys? Next, please.
Yeah, let me just jump back for 1 second, Kayla. Just on the meetings, I think as this committee evolves, we'll get a sense from each of you how logistically challenging it is to get people together in person. I think always things can be more productive in person than virtually, but at the same time, with the logistics and travel and everything else like that, it's often harder. So we'll leave that to you as a group. And again, there's about a dozen people that expressed an interest in being part of this, and we'll get permission from everybody in terms of circulating the list and contact information, so you all have that.
Jim, thank you for joining us. We'll make sure that you get the recording so you can watch the second half. All right, so why should I join the Sports Philanthropy Network. And I'm not going to sit here and read these to you guys. Would you take a moment, just read the features and the benefits of joining the network? And if anybody has a question, either type it into the chat or just unmute yourself and ask. All right, assuming everybody had a chance to read that slide, we'll go forward to the next one. So with the events, and could you guys do me a favor? Would you just raise your hand if you put events as one of the things that you might be interested in? Just so I can get a sense. Perfect. So with the events, we're hoping to have at least one event hosted per quarter. The goal of the events would be fundraising, such as a golf outing, a gala, whatever you think is best for your community in Kansas City. Doing some kind of SPWX, similar to something like a TED Talk or a local symposium. We host Sports Philanthropy World at a global level every year. Maybe it's something like hosting a local community conference in your neighborhood. Making sure that there's training and workshops as far as the social aspect, happy hours and networking. And then other options would be things like an organizational showcase, highlighting, for example, Eric's nonprofit with the heart screenings, or another business in the community, maybe Angel, it's your foundation. A pop pitch event to provide funding for local organizations. Eric, I'm sure you would love something like that. 5Ks, runs, walks, you name it, dinner, bowling, wine tasting, equipment drives. Right now, what we're doing as we travel throughout the country is we're doing sports bra drives, and we're keeping those sports bras in the local community in which they're donated to go to underserved girls and women because it's the 50th anniversary of Title IX. It made sense to us. You guys will decide what's best in your area. The baseline concussion testing, heart screenings, things like that. Does that make sense to everybody? This list is by no means exhaustive. We know that there could be hundreds of options to put on here. Next slide, Roy.
And one thing I just want to jump back to and reinforce from what Kayla said is, you know, we have ideas. We've seen things that have worked in different areas and communities, whether it's here in Chicago or in other cities. But one of the big purposes of the chapters from our perspective is to use that as a resource to provide some of these opportunities and trainings that may be harder to deliver on an individualized basis for a particular organization. So setting up things like baseline concussion testing or heart screenings and doing it and limiting it to a very small pool of kids takes the same amount of work as it might to open this up and do it for 20 organizations or 50 organizations. And so having the ability to use the chapter network and infrastructure to provide those opportunities. And we've had people approach us about doing similar types of models with everything from mental health to financial literacy and beyond. So I think that the chapters will serve as a great delivery vehicle for that.
Roy, I'll let you speak about fundraising. I think it's such an important topic. Why don't you go ahead with that one?
Sure. Obviously, as with all nonprofits, fundraising is a critical element. There's certain things that can get accomplished through in-kind donations, but a lot of the lifeblood of what we want to do is having the capital to provide those resources. As Eric knows, the cost of running heart screenings, you know, it isn't necessarily cheap, and you can get volunteers and you can do things up to a certain point. But for us, the goal is really to utilize all of these revenue streams in the fundraising space, just typical fundraising, sponsorship, membership, grants, and then look at how we can bring that back. Actually, I should change the order on this, but we'll go backwards. But looking at the use of the proceeds of what's going on. When we look at the fundraising, the goal of this is to be able to provide more support to local organizations and local initiatives. right? So whether that's grants or scholarships or professional development, the focus is how can we raise the money in Kansas City, keep that money and apply that locally, right? So that the largest proportion of what's going on is focused on organizations in your community. And that's an area when we look at what the responsibilities are, that's something that we will, go in the wrong direction here. Sorry. Let me try and go back here. That's something that we will look at where the local chapter individuals have involvement. From the home office side for Sports Philanthropy Network, we'll have our staff work on the operations, a lot of the event production elements. In the case of May 18th, obviously we'll work with Nathan to work on those logistics and find out what else we need to do. If there's a host venue like that, then they'll be key. But we want to make sure that from our end, we absorb most of the operational issues and most of the communications and social media and PR functions. And then the chapter would focus on supporting that, the people in the chapter, in terms of including that publicity, helping recruit people to come to the event, reaching out to your contacts, giving us ideas to plan events, and then we'll call it day of event support, right? So that the people that are on the steering committee that are involved with the chapter would be the ones that would be the hosts at these events, right? So again, we want to make sure that this is not taking huge amounts of your time being involved, but we want to give you the opportunity to lead and get that connection value and networking value from leading there. So we talked about May 18th. We kind of went through some of the details for this event, and we'll get that buttoned down with Nathan here in the next couple of days and get specifics out to everybody, including a flyer and a social media graphic, so that we can show people what's involved, and you can share that with your network. I think as you've seen, we have chapters that are going to be all over the country in different markets. And we want to make sure that you are supported. If you have other people in Kansas City that you want to include, would love to have you connect them into us. We can share this recording. We can make sure that those individuals are tied into the planning and looking at some of the chapters. And we'll share this PowerPoint with everybody here, as well as with the individuals that were not able to make this call. And you can reach out at any time to me, to Kayla, to Abby. We're all here to support and help on that. Kayla? I think you're muted still.
That's good. You didn't hear me stutter. I want to say thank you, Roy. Thank you, Abby, for the work that you're doing to make Sports Philanthropy Network function and to grow. For everybody else, I want to ask and open this up to questions. Does anybody have any questions on what they've seen?
So what we'll plan to do is to follow up with everybody based on some of the information that you gave us about where you think your involvement would make the most sense. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap in these areas, and we're just getting started. So each of these committees, when we start, it's usually might be 2 or 3 people, but the goal is to not take a lot of each person's time. And so ideally, I think we'd like to see sort of a chairperson or co-chairs for each committee with 3 to 5 other members, so that some of those functions can be planned in the committee level without needing to bring everyone together. And then we would anticipate getting everybody back together about once a quarter. So when we look at, oops, there we go. When we look at what's going on and when the next event or next meeting should be, we're going to do that kickoff event on May 18th, but I just wanted to get a bit of feedback from people on what dates or times might be best for calls. Is this a time, you know, is there, I know you can never get everybody, right? You try and combine 25 schedules and hopefully that number is going to keep growing. It's never going to work for everybody, but do people generally prefer mornings, afternoons, beginning of the week, midweek? People have any feedback, you can just put it in the chat.
I would prefer.
Go ahead.
I would prefer mornings, anytime like during the daytime. In the evening and afternoon, I have trainings and stuff, so I won't be able to do it.
Okay. So Ian's got mornings early in the week, Eric's morning. I know for, at least from my end, I'll speak for myself. Nathan, it depends on the day, but I think, you know, on my end, mornings are somewhat easier to plan. I don't think we would do it super early. I think more like a 10 a.m. is at a time that is typically going to be workable. And again, same format as this, where we can record it and we can circulate it, and we'll have more focused agendas on what the planning areas are. And I think most of the quote unquote work will be done at the committee level. So thank you so much to everybody for jumping on with us today. And I'm going to send it back to Kayla.
All right, thank you so much, Roy. The question that I have for everybody is my most important question. I'm curious to know how you guys feel like bringing a local chapter to Kansas City will help you, whether it helps your community or it helps you with your job, because that's really the goal. So if you guys would each just take a moment and unmute yourself, I'm really curious to know how this will benefit you. Ian?
I think you reached me through LinkedIn. So despite the research I did, I'm somewhat ignorant to the overall structure of the Philanthropy Network. I think my personal question is always, certainly in the community that myself, Brian, Bailey, and Nathan work in, there are a myriad of groups that have foundations of doing wonderful work. I think we would all agree that the one thing that doesn't happen enough is those groups are not brought together for sharing best practices, maybe even occasionally amalgamating, if not just collaborating. So if in time, this opportunity creates an easier roadmap for individuals in the community to find the resources available to them and perhaps bring a whole host of really good efforts together in a more cohesive way, that to me would be the most interesting part of this for me from where I sit.
I love that, Ian, because that's really, I'm just going to put up the one slide back for a minute here, because when you look at the concept behind Sports Philanthropy Network, it was exactly that you've got these three types of organizations, and all too often there's not any meaningful interaction and not any consistent interaction between them. And some cities, we see very good attempts between the pro sports franchises to connect and collaborate. And in other cities, it's almost like they want to protect their turf against competitors, right? Instead of looking at everybody as allies. And I agree with you. There's amazing organizations doing work. And often when we go to different cities and we have a group like this or bigger at a kickoff event, very few of the people have even interacted at all. And so I agree with that. Thank you.
Nathan?
Well, I had questions, just for clarification before I get into, because it's not too dissimilar from Ian. So what are the membership fees, just for clarity? So when we're having conversations with peers, with people potentially interested, like, is there a range? Like, because I'm not 100% sure on what the membership fees are.
Yeah, I can go bring that up, but the basic membership is $89 a year for individuals. We have chapter level sponsorships for businesses that want to be more visible and more exposed. And again, the goal of all of that is to put money into the pot for programming and scholarships and things like that in grants in the Kansas City marketplace.
Okay, and then just for the steering committee, what are our expectations? You gave us our tasks, our potential tasks, etc. What's the expectation of a steering committee member? Like, are we considered members already? Like, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't fuzzy on anything going into this. So, are we expected to pay the individual rate? Like, what are all those things? Just so I know.
Carol?
Yeah, I think, you know, we would want everybody to be a member, just because it's hard to ask people to be members if we're not members ourselves. I'm a member, Roy's a member, Abby's a member. In fact, Roy, if you can just pull up, are you able to share the screen from the Join Now on the Sports Philanthropy Network website?
Yeah, let me go pull that up while you're talking.
Okay, because I think that will make the most sense. And Nathan, I think it's a great question. So what I'm asking Roy to do, just to be perfectly clear, I like black and white. The gray can be kind of like, yeah, what were you trying to sell me? So let's just pull up the website so that you guys can actually see it. As we're doing that, Nathan, I would like to hear, I know you said similar lines along, Ian, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
It's really, for me, I think we talked about it in Kansas City. Collaboration is one of my values I truly believe in. And sorry, I had to look up amalgamation. I'd heard the word before, but of course, Ian throws me in as a curveball. And I like the word amalgamation, but it's for barriers to be broken, groups have to start to work together and figure out these things and share best practices, et cetera. And everyone, for the most part, works in silos or works on surface level, like collaboration, and mainly more from probably a social media presence, et cetera. So this is an opportunity to not only connect the group that I work with within sporting within the community, which is an initiative that I want to do, but then start to connect the macro level in Kansas City and turn it into something pretty special. So.
Thank you. I agree. I love that. Melanie will answer your question in just a second. But just to finish up with Nathan, you guys can see right on here. If you are a nonprofit employee, the membership is free. Oh. Or if you just want to go back to that other screen.
Did that jump to a different slide?
It did. It did. Thank you. There you go. Students are $19 and individuals are $89. So we believe that these prices are definitely affordable for even people where finances are a struggle. And then of course we do have grants available thanks to the generosity of sponsors who say, listen, I want to help somebody who isn't able to afford a membership to have one. Ideally, we want everybody who's passionate about sports philanthropy to be able to get a membership. Does that make sense?
Yep, nope, that is, like
okay.
You said, black and white, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yep, I agree. So right on the website. Melanie, to answer your question, that's ultimately up to you guys. That's the whole point of having the individual local steering committees. I know what Milwaukee needs. I don't know what Kansas City needs. I don't know how many heart screenings you've had. I don't know how many baseline tests you've had. I don't know how many drives you've had to make sure that every kid has a pair of soccer cleats, right? You guys know in your community where the needs are. And that's why we believe these local chapters are so important, so you can collaborate and solve the needs of your community. So we'll
And-
leave that up to you. Great,
And
great
I don't
question.
know, and I think as Kayla said, there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer because the needs are usually much greater than our ability to service them. And our goal is to get, I think, address what Ian and Nathan said of bringing people together to foster that spirit of collaboration. What I see in most markets is that the business, even the sports business community, meaning sports agents, sports media, sports marketing people, often have very little knowledge of sort of the infrastructure of, for example, in soccer, how that soccer community works and what that pipeline looks like and how they can help. So they may be interested in helping, they just don't know where to look and where to turn. And so bringing more of the business community together, we've seen it with some of the top sports agents, for example, in football, when we're at the Super Bowl or the NFL owners meetings and you talk to them about national initiatives, they don't know anything about what's going on. They're giving their athletes, frankly, very poor advice on how to impact their communities. And something like this, I think, can help that type of initiative.
And just to add to that, you guys, I'll give you an example. In Milwaukee, our greatest need would be access to equipment. A lot of single moms in Milwaukee wouldn't even be able to go to Goodwill and pay $12 for cleats. Better to take the cleats that your kids outgrew and donate them right back into a collection drive. We were just in Minneapolis for the women's Final Four championship game. I did not know this. I told you guys we were doing sports bra drives. Next to the country of Somalia, Minneapolis, St. Paul has the largest population of Somalis in the world. So you all know that the culture of the Somali people is very modest. Imagine being a refugee, having a child who wanted to play sports and not necessarily having the funds to get your daughter a sports bra as compared to an everyday school bra. You can imagine the impact that creates in a community. I didn't know that because I live in Milwaukee, but the people in Minneapolis, St. Paul knew all about it. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, moving on, just curious, how will this help you either professionally or in the community? And I want to say thank you to Nathan and Ian for offering up their opinions. Bailey.
Yeah, I think, and kind of as we've touched on a little bit, it's just good to not only, and like we'll need to outreach into our community to find out what would best benefit them, but it's not only identifying the needs, but the best way to serve them. And so if you can find one group or organization like this that can elicit both of those answers, I think that's very beneficial. So as mentioned in the chat, I think definitely determining what the most important things are right now as we head into, say, the summer climate, that'll be extremely important, I think. So just excited to help.
Bailey. Yeah, thank you. You know, one of the things that we see is there are silos within communities. So you have the football silo, the hockey silo, the soccer silo, the baseball silo, and people don't speak to each other outside of their particular silo. One of the things that is so important is getting the silos to sort of break down and communicate with each other. One of the people who wasn't able to make this call is an NFL alumni who lives in your area. So being able to collaborate together and break down silos is going to be huge for creating impact. Thank you, Bailey.
And I want to just jump in quickly because I think, Kayla, as Bailey's saying that, right, one of the hopes that we have for this group and for the steering committee is to continue to reach out and bring in people that across those different areas. This isn't intended to be a fixed group or a static group. We want this to continue to grow, and we want access from all of those things. And as Kayla said, among the dozen other people that want to participate, as former athletes, different sports. We've got the Kansas City Sports Commission, and all kinds of other groups. So think of it not only in the context of sports people, but in the context of business people that have a business that would benefit from being involved, whether they're an existing sponsor of one of the major sports teams in Kansas City, or a business that would cares about the community and cares about kids and wants to be involved.
Did anybody else want to go ahead and share how this will help you either professionally or make your community better?
I think just creating a having an environment where I know like the soccer people, we're all kind of, like you said, in these silos, and it's something I've seen as a problem, is trying to connect multiple sports or youth sports together, almost in the sense of not like a European club where it's all under, all these sports are under one club, but just being able to have, you know, football people, volleyball, lacrosse, soccer, basketball, baseball, everyone trying to work together and accomplish, you know, work towards one set goal of being youth sports, and not just developing your own sport, or not even that, but your own business of the sport. I think networking and strategic networking, right? Not just connecting people,